Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high, cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold on, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live, somebody. Let's go.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're back at it again. Did not expect this to happen at all, I swear to you, but I told you I was going to be back on in about an hour, and then something happened. Something breaks into, some news breaks, and of course, I want to be one of the first to come out and talk to you guys about it, because I hate being like the 20th person or the 100th person to finally talk about something, especially when it's something that we've been covering for a while, and now we got some new updates, and this is not looking good. No, this is not good for Diddy. Period. It's not good for Diddy. Yeah, it's not good. So we're going to jump right into it, okay? Get on in here. We got some conversations to be had. And I'm telling you, I'm still coming back on in a little bit to talk about something else. So make sure you got that notification bell on, okay? But hit that like button down below. Hit that reaction button if you're watching on other platforms. If you are watching on those other platforms, make sure you hit that follow button. Crush that follow button. Crush that subscribe button here on my main channel. Go to my secondary channel, The Pascal Show Clips, please and thank you. All right? Go to that. Make sure you're subscribed to The Pascal Show Clips. Crush it. All right? Hit that join button down below. Check out my Patreon. Check out my locals. And, of course, check out PascalMerch.com. Okay? Check it out. We got some good stuff over there. All right? Okay, guys, we got to get into this. Like I said, this was a surprising piece of information, but we gotta when the news be news and the news be news, and there's still a lot of stuff that we are going to be talking about here very shortly. In just a little while. I got a few other things I got to take care of on the second channel, but when I get done with those, we'll be over here to talk about some other things here very, very shortly. Okay, but nonetheless, there's some new information going on right now, and Megan Cuniff, speaks out or gives us a new update. Okay, she's somebody who's been following a lot of different lawsuits, a lot of different cases, and she's been following the Diddy case very, very closely. And shout out to you guys, because without you guys, real talk, without you guys giving me the updates, this probably would have flown right over my radar, because I'm about to get knee deep in a bunch of other things for both channels here in just a minute. But caught my eye, and I was like, no, I got to hop back on. We got to talk about this, because this is a very big deal. The reason why I say it's a very big deal is something I'm going to explain here in just a little bit. But again, this is not looking good, or this is not good for Diddy. Nonetheless, this is not good for Diddy. Let me just give you guys a quick reminder of what happened here. Diddy was in his cell in MDC. There was a raid done at multiple locations. At least that's what they say. There were multiple raids going on in multiple jails or multiple prisons. They happened to go into Diddy's cell and gather a bunch of stuff. They took photos of notes and other little knickknacks that he had in his cell. But what's more important is the stuff that they found out about Diddy in the notes that he had on these legal pads that he had in his jail cell, in his cell. Of course, a lot of things were unearthed. We found out that Diddy was out here making phone calls using other people's accounts, etc. He was coercing, he was harassing people, he was calling other people to go, and other friends of his that were not on his contact list that he was not allowed to reach out to, and he was allegedly reaching out to those people through three-way calls. He would call his son, and then his son would call that particular person, and then they would have a full-on three-way phone call. Not three-way, but a three-way call. And he would tell that person, hey, I need to go find out about this person, that person, and so on and so on. Okay? We find out about that stuff. We find out that he was using text messages on other accounts, etc. Right? We find out a whole slew of different things, that this man is doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Also, we find out that in these notes that he was writing, that he was, make sure he pays this person off, make sure he has this person paid, so on and so forth. This is all written in his notes that were found in his cell. Now, his team says, no, that's not fair. It goes against attorney-client privileged information that they found out, they saw stuff that was in those notes that were supposed to be just between him and his lawyer, only to find out that that's absolute BS and lies, okay? It's an absolute BS lie. At the end of the day, he was writing out stuff on paper that the government had a filter team look through all that stuff before it was handed over to the feds, to the prosecution, to make sure there wasn't anything incriminating or anything that would be within the confines of attorney-client privilege. Now, this has been a lot of back and forth going on between Diddy's team and prosecution and the feds, okay? So much that they showed up to this hearing, this emergency hearing revolving around the notes that were found, okay? And they said, listen, all of it says on the top of the legal pads, it says legal written in handwriting by Diddy, basically saying like, dude, you shouldn't be reading this stuff because this is legal information. This is attorney-client privileged information and it should stay as such. But then the judge says, wait a second, this makes no sense. Because you have on paper, you have this notebook. I see the notebook. I'm looking at the notebook. I'm reading the top of it now. And I see that you have legal written on the top of the paper, on the top of each page. But then I look at the photos that the feds took at the raid, and it don't say legal on the paperwork. Remember all that? Remember that? Okay. So the judge is like, you're going to have to explain all that because that doesn't make any sense. Nothing was written on there. That doesn't make any sense, right? So Diddy's team, then suddenly, I think we talked about this last week, maybe the week before that, something like that. He suddenly says, his team goes, wait a second. No, they targeted this whole attack, this whole search in these raids were specifically to try to take out Diddy. It was a full-on focus on Diddy and Diddy alone. They're saying they just wanted to get that attorney-client privileged information. They wanted to thwart whatever the hell Diddy was doing, all the things that he was doing while he was on the phone, text messages, etc., were completely against his constitutional rights and then some. And we already talked about that ad nauseum, basically saying, you a prisoner. You have no rights. You have some abbreviated, very tailored rights, but you in the house of whatever, like you in daddy's house, not even Diddy's house no more. And if dad sits there and says, that stuff is mine, I'm confiscating it, and it's in my possession, then it's theirs. Just like when they say, before a phone call even starts recording or starts going, they say, just so you know, this phone call is being recorded by the state or whatever, right? And then you start talking. So if you're sitting there going, hey, yo, son, I need you to get rid of all the pizza boxes and the plastics. If you're doing that, they're going to get that, for example. So if he's writing on pieces of paper and he's saying, hickory dickory dock, yeah, the mouse went up the mother-loving clock, yeah, they can go and get that piece of paper and say, that's mine now. That's it. It doesn't matter, guys. It does not matter. But they try to make it seem like the feds were doing some dirty. So much that they put out a motion and a request for an evidentiary hearing because they wanted to talk about what the feds actually had in their possession, and they want that stuff gone. They want that stuff thrown out. They don't want any of that paperwork used in court. And that's exactly why they had a request for an evidentiary hearing to basically say, hey, that stuff was attorney-client privileged material that the feds should not have had. Well, guess what, everybody? We got an update. Now, I'm just going to read what Megan Cuniff has said here. Okay, so the judge has ruled on Sean Diddy Combs' request for an evidentiary hearing over notes taken from his jail cell. Remember, he's saying attorney-client privilege information was on there, and they should not have had those pieces of paper, those notebooks at all whatsoever. But now the judge is saying, he says no hearing is needed. And we're going to look at the paperwork because we got the paperwork. We're going to read through it. Okay, it's only 7 pages. It won't be that bad. But it says the generic nature of the notes. She just took a quote from the paperwork, okay? So the generic nature of the notes makes it unlikely that any improper use of the information has or could be made. So that means he's basically saying, judge is basically saying they did no wrong. And if they want to use it, they can use it. You want to know why? Because here's the thing. Like I just told you a little bit of a very abbreviated timeline of what actually happened. He ran crying to his lawyers. And he said, they went through my stuff and blah, 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 you know. And his lawyers probably said, write legal on them right now. Just do it. Write legal on them. Which is interesting because at the same time, if that's the case, I'm still wondering why the judge has not, and we haven't read the paperwork yet, but it does make you wonder why the judge hasn't sat there and challenged his team. Because isn't that some semblance of perjury? Ain't it? If you're sitting there saying, no, legal was written on top of them, Your Honor, as you can see right here, Exhibit A, I don't know how it goes, but you know what I mean. You're out of order. The whole court is out of order, right? Here it is. It's written in plain black and white right here. It says legal. But then he's looking at it and going, wait a second. It doesn't say legal in the photos. And what did you do? Travel back in time and erase legal from the legal pads that were photographed? So make it make sense. But what's interesting is that they haven't even explained that. And if they are committing perjury while trying to save Diddy's booty, can't they get disbarred for something like that? Something to think about. But that's something that has still not been addressed at all. Period. Which makes no earthly sense to me. And at some point, that should be addressed. If this judge is not addressing that, that's weird. That's a big problem, in my personal opinion. I'd want to get down to the bottom of it. And that is something that Judge Subramanian has mentioned months ago. He wrote it out like, wait a second, the math ain't mathing. The timeline ain't timelining. How can I have legal written on it now, but it wasn't written on there in the photos? We need to talk about that. We need to address that. And that's still not being talked about, which is weird. Just saying that out loud, that seems a bit odd, don't you think? But moving on, okay? Because she says more here too. The order is 7 pages, which we're going to look at here in just a second. And this is a quote from the actual paperwork. There are numerous indications that the government did not intentionally invade Combs' privilege. So in other words, this sweep of raids that actually happened they actually happened. That's it. That they happened, and they just happened to go into Diddy's cell and get this information, and that's it, baby. That's literally it. There's no reason for them to sit there, lose their minds over the situation, throw a legal temper tantrum over the situation. No matter what, Diddy is in very, very big trouble already. We already know that. And we already know clearly his team is grasping at any straw that they can get. They're trying to get some sort of win here. So far, there has not been not one win. Okay? Not one win so far. Sure, certain things have been dropped, certain enterprises or certain companies have been dropped from certain lawsuits and whatnot, but his name is still attached to a lot of these things, to a lot of these lawsuits, to the things that the feds are going after him for. Let's not forget, in March, he's looking at some serious new charges from the feds. Again, this man is fighting for his life. So I get his legal team doing everything they can, but they are also moving the goalpost as best as they can too. They're cheating. They're cutting corners. They're doing things that are not cool. And of course, now you're seeing the judge actually saying, "No, man, we ain't doing that. Nah, man. Nope. Nice try though, but I'm siding with the feds." Yeah, we riding with the feds for this one, bruh. Sorry, homie. It is what it is, bruh. It is what it is. Let's take a look at this article, or not this article, but these documents, because I think this is going to be very telling as well. Okay, so from the judge, in connection with the bureau. Hold on, can't I do? Ooh, nope. All right. Dang. So in connection with the Bureau of Prisons, so October 28th, 2024 to November 1st, the sweep of the MDC. Of course, this is the jail that he's staying in right now. Okay, where the action where this alleged unruly crime in Diddy's team, in Diddy's perspective, took place, okay? Where this raid took place, and they took the photos and all that, okay? The BOP investigator one from this point on, photographed 19 pages of Combs' notes and sent them to a government filter team. Again, some places call them the filter team. Some of them call it the taint team. I'm not kidding. They call it a taint team some places because they're the people between the investigators and the prosecution. And they filter, they go through all the footage or through all the information, all the things that were found in a particular inmate's cell, and they make sure that whatever's going to be passed over to the prosecution does not violate attorney-client privileged information, okay? So they're in between that. This filter team redacted the notes and sent them to the case team. The case team consists of the agents and AUSAs investigating and prosecuting Combs. So again, the prosecution team, they go through all the stuff and they go, yep, this is okay to give them. Nope, this is not okay to give to them. This is information that only his team can use, like only Diddy's team is privileged to use, and so on, right? In November, the government included some of what it received from the filter team in its opposition to Combs or Diddy's bail application. And Combs objected, arguing that those notes contained privileged information and were obtained in violation of Combs' constitutional rights, which is absolute BS in my personal opinion. The court held an emergency hearing, which we already know about this, right? At which the government indicated that it would not rely on the notes in opposing the bail application. The court ordered the case team to get rid of the notes in its possession, which it did. That's what they're saying. They're saying that they told him, hey, you know what? To just make it everything cool and copacetic, we're going to just hit the reset button. Get rid of those notes. Say bye-bye to those notes. They don't exist anymore. And that's exactly what the prosecution allegedly did. Combs has now filed a motion for evidentiary hearing and other relief, arguing that the seizure of his notes violated the Fourth Amendment and that the government initially obtained his privileged communications in violation of the Sixth Amendment. In response to the motion, the government argues that there were no violations, but also that it won't offer as evidence the notes or any fruits of the notes. So they're saying we're going to throw them away. We don't need them, bruh. We don't need them. So if you want to keep having your temper tantrum, but we already put it through the shredder. We don't need it. We got enough on you, man. So in December 20th of 2024, ex parte letter that contains the contents of which were later shared with the defense, the government outlined certain investigative steps taken upon receiving the notes, but it represented that it, quote unquote, will not offer the evidence obtained pursuant to these investigative steps in the prosecution of the defendant, and that it, quote unquote, intends to produce the evidence obtained from these steps to the defendant to the extent it has not already. So, his Fourth Amendment claim is moot. Oh my God. Oh! Number one, his Fourth Amendment claim is trash. So let's go on. The first question is whether Investigator 1 violated his Fourth Amendment rights when he searched Diddy's cell and photographed the notes. The usual remedy for a Fourth Amendment violation is the suppression of evidence. So the exclusionary rule, the rule that often requires trial courts to exclude unlawfully seized evidence in a criminal trial, became the principal judicial remedy to deter Fourth Amendment violations. So blah, blah, blah. Here, the government agrees not to offer the notes, any fruits of the notes, or any evidence derived from any investigation it undertook based on the notes in this case. Of course, if the government later tries to use evidence it has promised to exclude, then Diddy can reprise his objection. But for the time being, the issue is moot, it's trash, it's nothing, it's a waste of time. Holding that, the government's decision not to offer challenged evidence warrants the denial of a suppression motion as moot and collecting cases. So, again, he's basically saying, yo, these guys have said they're not going to do anything. They're not going to use this stuff in their argument. You want to know, like, I'm going to say it again. I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record. Some of y'all might be like, man, you sound like a broken record too damn much, man. I'm just going to repeat it again, okay? For those y'all all in the nosebleed seats, there's a reason why. There is a reason why. I repeat, there is a reason why they are setting those notes aside and saying, hey, we're not going to use them in our argument. You'll never hear us talk about this at all. Why, you may ask? Why? Because they got enough to bury this man. They don't need the notes. They've got enough. And they're about to take him all the way down. He's going down. You know what I mean? He's going down. Okay? He's going down. Let's continue on, though. They don't need anything. They're like, shoo, I don't need it. Huh. Go ahead. Take your notes. Take your little notes. We're going to be here chilling, baby. Go ahead. We good. Think about this. They said that, and then now what is he looking at right now? What is he looking at right now? He's looking at more charges from the feds. So it clearly shows to you, okay? It clearly shows to you that they ain't got nothing to worry about. They don't need the feds. They don't need the feds. They don't need the notes because they already have enough. 50 different witnesses. They have flight records. They have surveillance footage, not only just the freak-offs, but actual surveillance footage of him doing crimes. Proof positive of him doing some bad things. This man is mother loving cooked. In fact, he deep fried. Okay? He's deep fried. What? Read Robert's comment. Who's Robert? Where? What? Got breaking news according to Court TV and Vinnie Politan has just learned that, let me get this, P. Diddy has been indicted, added by a federal government grand jury in New York City on Wednesday afternoon. Okay, I'm going to have to look. Ooh, I got to write that down. We might have to be, okay, I might have to look at that. If that's, okay, Diddy indicted. I'll look at it in a second. We got to look at this, though. We right here. I might have to come, that might be another live. Oh, my God. The hits just keep on coming. Damn it, Diddy. Damn you, Diddy. Okay, I'm done. There's just so much going on, Mike. There's so much going on. So, again, if he's been indicted, now that's interesting. We're going to be looking. Don't worry. Somebody remind me once we get through this, okay? We're only on page 2. Let me get through this, all right? And we will come back, all right? We will come back to that because that's interesting information. If that's true, diggity damn. Damn. Okay, moving on. No remedy is warranted on his Sixth Amendment claim. So relief may be warranted under the Sixth Amendment, where the government intentionally seeks to obtain a defendant's privileged communication to interfere with the attorney-client relationship. There are 2 questions that matter here. Did the government intentionally invade Diddy's relationship with his counsel? If so, has Diddy been prejudiced? Moving on. To make out a violation of his Sixth Amendment rights, Diddy would need to establish that privileged information was passed to the government or that the government intentionally invaded the attorney-client relationship and resulting prejudice. Fifth alteration, in original, blah, blah, blah. Under circumstances here, assuming without concluding that a portion of the unredacted notes was privileged, there are no grounds for relief. Again, let's just say, right? Nothing. Still nothing. Okay? Nothing. The government did not intentionally invade Diddy's privilege. So there are numerous indications that the government did not intentionally invade Combs' privilege, Diddy's privilege. First, it is undisputed that the photograph notepads were separate and apart from the manila folder that clearly marked legal. Investigator 1 didn't search that folder, while Diddy intentionally told the court that initially told the court that the photograph notepads were marked legal as well. The defense retreated from this position when confusion developed over when the handwritten quote-unquote legal labels had been added to the notepads. There it is. Second, Investigator 1 sent the photographs he took to the filter team, not the case team, to review for any privileged information. It may be that the filter team's privilege determinations were inaccurate, but nothing indicates any intent to intrude on Diddy's privilege. Third, the court notes the high level and generic nature of the notes and the fact that case-related commentary from Diddy was often mixed in with clearly unprivileged information, like reminders about a family member's birthday and inspirational mantras, without the context later furnished by defense's counsel ex parte declaration, which explains how specific notes relate to defense strategy, and given the circumstances in which Investigator 1 discovered the notepad separate from Combs' legal folder, there is no basis to infer an intentional intrusion into Diddy's privilege. Finally, the government promptly turned the photographs over to Combs, which further weighs against any inference of intentional malfeasance. This episode illustrates why the filter team should communicate with the defense before giving Diddy's case-related materials to the case team. But it does not bear the hallmarks of intentional intrusion or conduct that is manifestly and avowedly corrupt. Diddy further argues that even beyond the photographed notes, Investigator One has been, quote unquote, an agent of the case team, feeding jail communications to the prosecutors and an informant in the defense camp. The court ordered both the case team and Investigator One to furnish sworn affidavits explaining the chain of events surrounding the MDC sweep and ordered the production of all written communications between the case team and Investigator One for in-camera review. A careful review of these documents confirms that there has been no intentional interference with Diddy's attorney-client relationship. Affidavits by Slavic, a prosecutor on the case team, and Investigator One give consistent narratives, all redacted. The case team then made requests for information about the communications through the proper channels, including grand jury subpoenas. So, again, he's sitting there saying, hey, we did our due diligence. We went through all the information, and no, all the claims that you made, basically saying that the Investigator One is a mole and he's working in tandem with the prosecution, is absolutely unequivocally wrong and false. Again, these claims in which they had out here are not accurate at all whatsoever. Again, they went into that home, or not the home, that jail cell, like they went into every other person's jail cell. So it does not matter. It does not matter. They did everything. They're like, he said, okay, sure. You can basically say, like, maybe there were some certain things, when it was the passing of material from the filter team to the prosecution. Sure, you can challenge that, but he says, I don't see any issues with it. There's nothing wrong with it. So what you arguing about? What you tripping about? What you got your panties in a bunch over? Because you ain't got nothing to be worried about. Two supervisors at the U.S. Attorney's Office were aware that the BOP planned to search Diddy's unit during the security-motivated sweep, and they supported searching this unit despite delays in searching other units. Slavic's affidavit indicates that there was no direction from any SDNY personnel that Diddy be under special scrutiny during the sweep of his unit. So in other words, every single unit, I'm 12, but every single unit was searched. Get it? Unit? Okay, moving on. Every single unit was searched, okay? It's not like this went after his unit and only his unit. They went after all of their units. Moving on. And no one at the U.S. Attorney's Office, including the case team, knew that Investigator One was part of the MDC sweep until after it was over. The case team was informed of Investigator One's role following the sweep and promptly asked for the photograph notes to be sent to a filter team because they knew that there was going to be a search of his cell. That's exactly what they did. They searched his unit, and then they said, oh, wow, they went through his stuff. Hold on. No. We got to do this clean. We got to do this right, because as soon as we screw this up, he could walk. We can't do this. This is potentially a very, very big fish. Why would they drop the ball? For illegally searching his unit. So, of course, they're going to go through and do it the right way, the Boy Scout way. And that's exactly what they did. They said, we're going to use the taint team after searching his unit. I'm on fire, y'all. I'm on fire. Okay. But at the same time, they did that. They're making sure everything, all their P's and Q's are on point. Written communications between the case team and investigator one, which the court reviewed in camera, tell the same doggone story. So far from, I just went in on units and taints. Oh my God. I'm 12 years old. Moving on. Far from an intentional prosecution-driven invasion into Diddy's relationship with his attorneys, the records show that investigator one was doing his job as a BOP intelligence analyst and followed the established channels for reporting communications that pose safety concerns. So like he said, this man did this investigator and everybody else did this by the book. That's it. By the book. The case team was informed of these communications when appropriate, and similarly followed the established channels for obtaining information and protecting Combs' privilege. Care was taken to shield Diddy's communications with his attorneys from the case team. None of this suggests that investigator one deliberately set out to or was instructed to invade Diddy's attorney-client privileged relationship, okay, and impede his defense. So again, they're saying these guys did this by the book, period. Diddy fails to show prejudice. Oh, man, this judge don't like him. It's official. He probably reading this too. He's probably at page 4 right now, hearing about this, and he's like, man, this judge don't like me, man. Damn. I mean, I thought everybody likes my unit, though. You don't like my unit? Okay. So even if there was an intentional intrusion into Diddy's attorney-client relationship, and there was not, a remedy is appropriate only if Diddy is prejudiced by the intrusion. Blah, blah, blah. The question is whether the potential intrusions into Diddy's privilege, quote unquote, have produced directly or indirectly any of the evidence to be offered at trial. Moving on. No. Okay. Observing that some circuits apply, involving jailhouse monitoring and document interception. As discussed above, the government has already stated that it won't offer as evidence the notes, any fruits of the notes, or any evidence derived from any investigation it undertook based on the notes. The government also submitted an ex parte letter to the court explaining what investigative steps it took, the results of which will not be used in trial, and it provided the defense with the information in the letter. So they said, hey, we don't need to talk about all the stuff that we found. In fact, we're going to tell you what we found. Here are all the things that we found, but we ain't going to talk about it. So once we put this on paper and put it out and submit it to you guys, once you see this, we're burning this. We're burning the information. We're burning the notes. We're burning all the evidence. We don't need it. We don't need it. That's the sprinkles. That ain't the whole damn sundae. It's the sprinkles on top. We got the whole damn sundae, the freaking whipped cream and the cherry on top. It's already fire the way it looks. It's already delicious. We don't need the sprinkles, so you can have the sprinkles. Have them. Here you go. Here's the things that we know. Here you go. But we ain't going to talk about it no more. We're not even going to bring it up. We're over here winning. Moving on. The court and the defense both now have the necessary information to flag suspect evidence if the government later attempts to use it against Diddy at trial. So again, they're like, hey, if they bring it up, you have all the rights to bring this up and throw a tantrum back when the time is right. But for right now, shut up. However, at this point in the case, the wholly conjectural connections that Diddy draws between privileged information and the government's case, including general allegations of taint unconnected to any specific evidence to be presented at trial, are insufficient for a finding of prejudice. Again, judge is saying, nah, you good, but you ain't good. It's not going to work. Sorry, we don't need to talk about this because we're not using the stuff, and there's no proof of the government cutting corners or bending the rules or even breaking laws to try to take you down. Okay? The circuit has not endorsed the taint theory that the government thought process or questioning of witnesses may have been influenced by its access to defendants' documents. Such non-evidentiary tangential use of defendant's privileged material would not constitute a violation. Okay? So no hearing is warranted. He's like, we don't need to do this. We don't need to have an evidentiary hearing because there's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to be had. No hearing is needed to further investigate the government's alleged misconduct because he's like, there was no misconduct. So why do we need to get together and have a sit down and talk? There is no violation here, guys. None. Combs argues that a hearing is required to find out what really happened with Investigator 1 and why. As quote unquote, the court should not just accept the government say so. At such a hearing, Diddy suggests the court should quote unquote order the government to produce Investigator 1's communications with the prosecutors and take his testimony to fully understand what he was thinking during the search. What? Okay. And to also answer other questions, including who Investigator 1 sent the photos to, and what exactly the prosecutors knew before requesting copies of the notes. Yeah, okay. The court already issued an order requiring such evidence and sworn statements to be furnished. And an evidentiary hearing on potential government misconduct isn't unnecessary when, the quote unquote, the district court has a sufficient record on which to make its rulings. Okay, so this is about some other hearing, for example. Here, the government provided a lengthy affidavit by a member of the case team based on her review of relevant communications and her conversations with other members of the case team and supervisors from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Investigator 1 also submitted an affidavit. Together, these documents presented a clear, factual narrative, which Diddy then had the opportunity to respond to. The court also had the benefit of in-camera review of the government's communications with Investigator 1. With such an extensive paper record to rule on, no live hearing is needed. In other words, all of they did everything by the book, y'all. And even so, Diddy's like, I need to see the proof. And they're like, there's the proof right here. But I need to see more proof. Well, there's plenty of proof right here, buddy. No corners were cut. Moving on. No hearing is needed to test the government's evidence for taint. So, Diddy also argues that an evidentiary hearing is necessary to determine whether any of the government's evidence is derived from the notes. A hearing could uncover the extent to which the case team used the privileged notes to develop leads or uncover new evidence, or whether other information from Investigator 1 led the case team to develop new leads or gather new evidence. This is what Combs is claiming, by the way. This is what Diddy is claiming. This is essentially a request for a castigar hearing in which the government would be required to demonstrate that the evidence it uses to prosecute an individual was derived from legitimate independent sources. Moving on, there is no binding Second Circuit authority on the question of whether a castigar hearing is required. When a defendant alleges an intrusion upon the attorney-client privilege by the government, Okay. Diddy relies on U.S. versus Schwimmer. I don't know if it's David Schwimmer. I doubt it. But anyway, where the Second Circuit remanded for a hearing to determine whether information derived from allegedly privileged sources was used by the government in violation of the attorney-client privilege to prepare for trial, even though the government didn't use the documents directly as evidence. Regardless of whether a Castigar hearing is an appropriate remedy in cases where attorney-client privilege is allegedly intruded upon, a defendant has the burden of showing a factual relationship between the privileged information and the prosecution before they are entitled to the hearing. A defendant who seeks Castigar relief must first articulate the purported violation with enough specificity to permit the government to respond. Diddy doesn't come close to making such a showing, particularly now that the government has disavowed use of the notes or evidence derived from them. An insubstantial and speculative possibility of taint, which is all that Diddy can assert at this point, does not trigger Castigar. This failure to make the required showing is sufficient to end the inquiry and avoid the necessary of a Castigar hearing. So even if the Second Circuit had firmly recognized the right to a hearing in such cases involving claimed intrusions into attorney-client privilege, Diddy is not, quote unquote, entitled to one here because he has not made a threshold showing that the government's evidence is tainted. The generic nature of the notes makes it unlikely that any improper use of the information has or could be made. We already read that quote before too. And again, they're saying there's nothing here. Like they're tripping over nothing, right? They're making a big deal out of nothing because they have done everything in their power to stay on their P's and Q's. And again, here, this is an important part too, to remind you guys, they have also said that they're not using the stuff. They're not using any of that evidence, or they're not using any of those notes or any of that sort in their arguments or using them as evidence because they already have enough. Okay. They gave Diddy general thoughts on how to approach certain issues, none of which would come as a surprise. However, if a question arises closer to trial as to the use of suspect evidence and Combs can make a threshold showing that the evidence is tainted, then Combs can bring it to the court's attention. Until then, the government is cautioned to be mindful of Diddy's privilege and the need to abide by filter team processes. While there is currently no demonstrated need for a special master, the court recommends that the filter team clear potentially privileged documents with the defense before turning them over to the case team. That's it. And of course, it says the clerk of court is directed to terminate this thing so ordered. So again, this whole thing is basically the judge basically saying, hey, you could sit here and whine and moan, Diddy's team, but it does not change anything. Because the prosecution, the feds have already said that they're not using this stuff. And he's saying, I believe that the feds will not. But if you want to go but if you want to make a big deal about it, only make it a big deal if the feds actually do use your information in court. But he's like, I believe that they won't. Then when it comes to the raid was a raid. It was not a directed targeted attack at Diddy, which I can understand Diddy's concern or his theory on that. I'm sure a lot of people thought that theory too. But They said, hey, that investigator one swore under oath. We did a bunch of interviews. We looked at information. They checked out all the stuff that they were able to bring to the table, and everything was spot on, was clean, and that there was no illegal activity going on. Also, at the same time, he says, yo, it didn't say legal on the pads, and they were separate from the folder, the manila folder or envelope that said legal on it. So how would somebody know if that is attorney-client privilege at that time? Even the filter team, when they were going through the photos and the information that they were filtering through before they passed it over to the prosecution, didn't say legal at that time either. It only appeared after those photos were taken. So again, he's sitting there going like, you could try to move the goalpost and try to make it seem like it's something, but it's not. It's really not. So again, Diddy and his team are making a mountain out of a molehill. In fact, not even a molehill, like a grain of dirt. They're making something out of nothing. And now that the judge is basically saying, nah, I ain't with it. You can go ahead and you can cry me a river, but I'm not listening to this. And the only time I can see us going back to this and talking about this, okay? The only time I can see us talking about this is if prosecution suddenly just throws a curveball and brings in all of that attorney-client privileged information, or what they claim to be Diddy's attorney-client privileged information while in court. But I'm telling you right now, they will not be bringing it up. They will not. It's done because the feds say we got enough. Remember the laundry list of things that they have against Diddy. The fact that they are going to be hitting him with another lawsuit, with more charges here very soon, clearly states and clearly shows to me that this man is in some serious, serious trouble. 50 witnesses. They got flight records. They got security cam footage. They also have freak off videos as well. There's enough to bury this man for a very, very long time. They don't need some notes that were written on legal pads. Some of them just saying like, you got this, bro, written in a legal pad. They don't need that. They don't need all that stuff. They got enough to take this man all the way down. All right. And this is going to be very interesting when it all does go down, right? But real quick, let me just see what's going on here. There's so much going on today. Oh my dear God. Playing. Let me see here. Yeah, and then now it's not the Gulf of Mexico anymore, guys. I know that's a little bit of a left turn, but apparently now it's not the Gulf of Mexico, it's the Gulf of America. Some wild times, y'all. We're living in some wild times. Hold on. I'm trying to see if there's anything about him actually getting indicted. I don't see anything so far, but hold on. Let me see. Yeah. I don't see anything from Vinny either. Maybe he did it on court TV, maybe, but I don't see anything on his own YouTube channel. But I'll take a look, see what's up. Nah, I don't see anything about that. So far, I don't see anything. Nope. So that might be wrong information. That might be fake news. But still, nonetheless, guys, okay, Diddy can keep trying, okay? He can keep on trying, but I'm telling you right now, okay? He ain't got enough. Long story short, he ain't got enough. And the judge is basically saying, you can keep on trying, you can keep on getting angry about things, but it's not going to change anything. It's not. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next. This is going to be interesting what happens over the next couple of weeks. Like I said, we got to keep an eye on this because there's just more and more stuff that's just popping off. This is a huge loss for Diddy. This is a massive loss for Diddy. This does not help him at all because I'm sure he was hoping that that information would be something that he could use against prosecution and try to stifle them as much as possible and show proof positive that something corrupt is going on, that they're going after him, that this is some sort of witch hunt. They're trying to take him down. No, they have enough information out here. They have enough on their side to bury this man for several lifetimes if he was found fully guilty of everything. So again, this is going to be interesting. And the fact that the judge just sided with the feds on this is very bad news for him. Very, very bad news. But anyway, guys, that's the show, guys. I appreciate all y'all for being here. I got some other videos I got to upload and put up on the second channel. So make sure you're watching. If there's any other breaking news, you know for a fact we're going to be right here talking about it all. So make sure you have that notification bell set to all whenever we go live, etc. Oh, dang. I forgot about this. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. I was going through all of this. Hold on real quick. Mimi, thank you so much for being a member for the past over 2 years. I appreciate it. Hi, ladies. Hope y'all are good. Yes, to the fellas and the ladies. Hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you so much. All right, Mimi, again, thank you so much for the super chats and the super stickers. Thank you so much. Gemini, thank you so much for the love. We keep forgetting this judge has seen some of the videos and evidence. I think it's a he. He's probably disgusted with him. Yeah, you ain't wrong with that too. Probably like, man, I've seen some of this stuff is diabolical, man. And he may be like, nah, nah. They got this fair and square. And that's it. They abided by the rules and abided by the law. There was no violation of attorney-client privilege. So that's very interesting, right? But thank you so much for the super chats. But I'm going to be on in a little bit. I'm going to be on in a little while, okay? That might be a little bit later than I expected because of this one, all right? And I got some other stuff I got to put up on the second channel real quick. So make sure that notification bell is set to all, okay? Please do me a favor, though. Hit that like button down below. Crush it. Do what it do. That would be greatly appreciated. Do not forget to hit that follow button if you're watching on all these other platforms. Please and thank you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button here. Hit that join button down below. Become a member. Check out my Patreon. Check out my locals. And, of course, check out PascalMerch.com. Okay, guys, I'll be talking to you guys soon. I got to get going, but I'll be seeing you guys very soon. There's a lot to talk about, and we'll be talking about it very, very soon. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. We'll talk soon. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.